Chris. Howdy. Um, and yeah, let's go. Okay, it's checking connection. Yeah, howdy everyone. Okay, cool. So, for those of you who do not know, I, in my spare time, like to do movie reviews, and I've not been able to actually do them on a live platform for a very long time. I now have the opportunity to do so. So what I'm gonna do is, for those of you who are watching on Insta, I am live on YouTube. So just go to YouTube and type in Musty Reviews. And then number two is whoever's watching on YouTube. This says one person's watching. Maybe it's me, maybe it's someone else. But just give me a wave or type in the live chat so I can see who you are. And other than that, I think I'm just gonna dive straight into it. So um, nice new year, and we have a lot of stuff that we can actually watch. So I'm gonna go in straight and say this year we've got like a handful of movies, and as and when the news is relevant, I shall probably report on it. So in today's episode, my agenda is number one, um, Mortal Kombat. There's a new Mortal Kombat movie coming out. Number two is there is a new King Kong versus Godzilla that's coming out, and next up is WandaVision. I think that's going to be a larger chunk of the show, followed by Resident Evil news, and I'll probably wrap up on the Samsung Galaxy S21. So nice broad spectrum. When restaurants and eating establishments have opened up again, I shall be adding a section for those guys as well, um, and maybe a music section. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. Oh no, I should have used that for the food section. What a great pun. Okay, cool. And yeah, so again, like I mentioned, for those who are watching on Insta Live, you jump over to the YouTube, you shall definitely be able to see me. Cool. So let's go and okay, let's start with Godzilla. I think so. There's a new Godzilla flick coming out, King Kong vs Godzilla. For those of you who haven't seen the legendary Godzilla movies, they're good, they're great. The 1998 one is known to be a bad movie, but on in retrospect, it's not really. Um, like yeah, in that 1998 Godzilla movie, there's like it's not even accepted by the Japanese. They refer to it as Zilla rather than Godzilla. And then they had another movie a couple of years later called Godzilla Final Wars, where they had Godzilla, the Japanese Godzilla, fight that variation of Godzilla, and kicked his butt in Australia. The legendary ones are good; they're great. The first one is just fine. The second one's way better and way closer to the um, the Japanese type one. It's like a very much destroy all monsters kind of thing. It's very good, very great. I don't think it's on Netflix, Amazon Prime for free. I think you can go and purchase it to watch on Prime. I recommend it. I think also there's a Kong Skull Island as well, which is pretty good. It's very visually pleasing, and I think what they did is they combated a lot of the gripes that they had with the first legendary Godzilla movie, the Godzilla 2014, where it was dark and kind of shady, and you couldn't see like Godzilla properly. Like whenever they're going to show the monsters fight, they cut away. And I understand that as a studio perspective, you want to just like hide, sort of cut that CG budget and just like cut away whenever you're going to show something important, um, and cut away to the human storyline. I think whatever money and income that generated, they plowed into Skull Island, and they also plowed that money straight into King of Monsters, Godzilla King of Monsters, which is very, very good. Um, with Skull Island, it's nice, it's bright, it's very beautiful, very poppy, very much a family film. There's 0% romance, you know what I mean. So you can watch it with like if you've got old parents, you can watch it with them. You've got young kids, they'll understand. Like they'll watch it, they'll enjoy it. Um, it's very much a reflection on the dangers of war. I think that sometimes if you pick a fight with a bigger guy, then you're gonna get your butt handed to you, in a sense. But also sometimes like whoever you're picking a fight with is picking a fight with a bigger monster. Um, but yeah, and Godzilla, King of Monsters is very good. One of my favorite movies of 2019, and that's nuts because in 2019 you had like Avengers Endgame. Yeah, correct. Endgame. You had Dark Phoenix, which was okay, fine. You had Spider Man as well. You also had a couple other franchise movies. I think you had Star Wars. I think you had the last Star Wars movie, um, The Rise of Skywalker. So, like me, 10-year-old me would be going nuts thinking, oh, look at all these big hitting movies that are coming out in 2019. And it just turns out that, yeah, um, like the ones I would be excited about are the ones that, as a 10-year-old, are the ones that flopped, except for maybe Godzilla. But on a side note for that, Dark Phoenix is a bad movie and you shouldn't watch it. But also, if you want to watch it, do so because it reminded me how great the X Men are, and despite it being a bad movie, I think Fox themselves they sort of managed to capture that sort of team effort sort of thing that the X Men are um, quite known for. And weird tangent, I know, but that's why I want to have a free flowing long session on these. Hopefully, I do want them to go to like hour long. But yeah, in regards to X Men, is and X Men movies overall, is there's something that the 90s cartoons captured that the movies never were not really able to, which is the Friends of Humanity storyline, where it's basically bigotry and racism towards mutant kind, and how the X Men are sort of campaigning to say, okay, you guys absolutely cannot like go and bully these people. I'm gonna put myself on main screen. You cannot go around and attack the people that are being repressive against you. You have to show them a better way. And the Magneto side, the Brotherhood of Mutants, are on the opposite, saying there is a war coming and we need to prevent this by sort of challenging the people that are oppressing us. And that's where you get the sort of the whole mutant civil war thing going on. And yeah, so I really hope that when MCU take over X Men, that they can sort of guide it in that direction. I know that they're looking at very diverse castings. I think they wanted a black person to be Professor X and Magneto, and I'm more than fine with that. I think um, I know Netflix do this a lot. But I think it's just fine. Obviously, um, Professor X was based on Malcolm X, and um, Magneto was based on the guy that had a dream, Martin Luther King. Forgive my poor knowledge of history, but there were basically two, um, you know, polar sides, basically two sides of the same argument. And yeah, so I think if MCU, if Disney and MCU come up with something that's a bit progressive or a bit of a change to what the Fox's X Men were, and they weren't bad in any means. They just weren't great, and I think this is a general note to be had on the MCU overall, which is for Marvel Cinematic Universe standards, some things are everything is great. Everything Marvel produces is excellent and amazing. But by according to their standards, though, for example, Inhumans, the TV show is probably like the worst thing ever for Marvel Cinematic Universe. But by Marvel standards, it was bad. But by other TV show standards, it's still quite decent. Like it wasn't awful. And that's mostly because of Lockjaw, the giant teleporting dog. But still, the casting was great and the effects were just fine. I think it got a bit schlocky towards the middle when they ran out of budget, but regardless, I was hoping for a lot more within Inhumans itself, and I know like no one that's listening to this live show right now has ever seen Inhumans, and I strongly doubt any of you have seen Agents of Shield either. And if you're not watching Agents of Shield, I'm sorry. You need to go to Disney Plus, go buy it, pay for it, whatever you want, borrow your friend's account. Just go on there and watch it. There's 7 seasons, and every season's amazing. Every episode's like pretty 10 out of 10. So moving all the way back from the way tangent back to Godzilla versus King Kong. is I think it's coming out end of March, early April. I think they moved the date 2 months behind or 3 months behind from the summer to early late spring. Um, I do want to watch this in the cinema. It's a movie that I'll risk, going to the cinema for. I hope cinemas are open. I do miss Odeon and I do miss their nachos. But realistically speaking, I don't think the UK lockdown is going to end till the end of April. Um, so there's that to deal with. But onwards and upwards. And moving on to the next topic at hand is Mortal Kombat. Now, it looks great, it looks good, but these screenshots were released, I think, a couple of days ago in regards to the new Mortal Kombat movie, and I'll cycle through them. We'll have a look. We've got Sonya Blade here, who is, I think she's beating up Kano, and we've got, I think, Liu Kang, Sang Shang, I think. There you go. We got Liu Kang and Kung Lao there, and it looks good, looks great, looks nice. It's gonna be like a 15, so certificate 15. So that's probably like gonna have some blood and gore. Apparently the fatalities are very very good, and then we've got a picture of Jax here and Kano again, and wrapping up on Sub Zero. But here's my issue. Here's my thing. You see now, this here, the CGI looks great, the casting looks great, but it looked great for the 90s one, and I'm gonna show you this. Like, this looks, today's standard looks very schlocky, and I've got a feeling that the new one's gonna look very schlocky too. Like, look at this. This is very, game accurate outfits. The narrative doesn't follow that, but the game somewhat does. And I've got these images on screen anyway, and yeah, it's like this. Like, they didn't spend as much budget on this as they did with the previous one, the one from '95, but like you can tell, like, that they're very game accurate outfits. But you look at like this one, and I'm gonna bring up this picture of Jax, and I'm gonna bring up the picture of Liu Kang Kung Lao, which is, yeah, it looks good, looks great, and the CGI is good. But like, I'm just guessing that because it's just got a 2020 budget, and because it's got 2020 CGI, which is not bad, then you're gonna have the same thing but with new graphics, and I'm not sure if that's what the audience wants. And also, hello to my IGTV audience. If you want to join in on YouTube, you can just go YouTube Musty Reviews, and I am there live right now, and you can see a fancy stuff on the green screen behind me. And thank you for joining in. I know it's very, very late in the night, but this is the only time I get to myself, and that's quiet. So you got to make time for your dreams. You got to make time for them. So yeah, moving on swiftly, we have WandaVision. So in terms of spoilers, I would say there's next to none, maybe very minor spoilers, but with this in mind, I think there's something very interesting that they're doing. So originally the plan was that there'll be Black Widow, Eternals, and maybe one more movie before we get to WandaVision coming out on Disney Plus. And as a result, because of a certain global pandemic, we cannot do that. They couldn't follow through with that, so they released WandaVision. This is technically the first mainstream MCU content that's going out in over a year. But technically, we've had Agents of Shield that's wrapped up a few months ago, and I think we've pretty much had like a 3 month break or so, which is somewhat normal, I think, for Disney, Marvel, MCU overall. But anyway, WandaVision's out. It's good. It's great. I think we've had 2 episodes. The first episode was about 20 minutes long, and the second one was about 25, pushing 30 minutes. Um, and if you take each, there are many layers to this. So I'm going to gather my thoughts for a moment. But what I'm going to say is, if you first initially take on the show as what is sort of described to be, which is a look through of a celebration of TV shows throughout multiple generations. So you've got your the very birth of the TV serial drama, which takes very simple concept and moves it forward, and then you've got your sort of I Love Lucy and Bewitched style, and then you move on to the 70s and the 80s, 90s. I think they're going to go all the way up to the 2010. I know that they're going to go down the Modern Family route. I just hope that before they get there, they do like a Malcolm in the Middle style um, episode, and I think that'll be pretty good. But now, what's interesting about this is there's an overall plot line of, why is Wanda and Vision here? Vision is dead, and Wanda is doing something, and she can't remember, and neither can Vision. But the interesting thing is that Vision himself is not being himself. He's normally, I know he's got the quote in Age of Ultron is that um, there is a lot of different factors in not Age of Ultron actually. It's in Infinity War. There's a lot of different aspects within Vision. So there is the Mind Stone, and then there is um, Ultron, and then there's parts of Tony as well. And the idea was that you remove those parts, there should still be the AI of Jarvis and Vision within there. And I think as you're watching the show, it might be confusing, it might be off-putting for a large number of audiences because you just don't know what's going on. They don't outright tell you. You got to depend on the meta narrative to understand. And with that in mind, there is a lot going on. On the face of it, as you're watching the show blind without knowing anything that's going on out in the outside world, what you have is a throwback TV show. And this, if you were to take out a time capsule from, let's say, the 1940s, 1950s ish, and you put on a TV show episode, it will play beat by beat the same way that first episode of WandaVision did. And you'll have the long takes, and obviously people are going to be put off, or why is it in black and white, and why is it in 4:3 instead of 16:9? But um, you'll have that sort of episode format as well until you get towards the certain part where you start questioning, like, oh, actually, what's going on? There's a darker, sinister tone here. And a similar thing happens in the next episode where it will play out beat by beat, just like Bewitched would, where you've got these two characters that are trying to hide that they have a certain secret, and they'll go about their day-to-day life like normal, but then that secret will play a part within the whole show. And unfortunately, I'm not lucky enough to get to watch the first three episodes in advance. I'm only got watching the one, the two that were released on Friday night, Friday, some point in Friday. Um, so yeah, I think with WandaVision, the first two episodes are interesting. They're interesting. Um, Minor spoilers for a short second, and I thought it's important to say this, which is there are commercials in the middle of each episode, and the first commercial was basically a toaster by Stark, and the second commercial was a watch by was a Strucker watch, meaning von Strucker, who is the Hydra general who one of the heads of Hydra that sort of worked with the I think it was the Mind Stone to make Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have their powers. So, we've come across two sort of commercials that will sort of have something to do with the origins of the two main characters. And I think overall the show itself is like a puzzle, like a detective show, as us as a viewer. And by all means, I respect this from Disney and Marvel, that they know that people like me are going to sit on YouTube and we're going to come up with our theories, and they're giving us something to eat. They're giving us something to get our teeth into. One thing is that the first episode, like this is just conspiracy theories, but it's why I wanted this channel, why I want to do this, which is number one is they have Vision's tie has a little circuit board diagram on it on the first episode, and on the second episode with the giant closet, the artwork on it looks just like Vision's Mind Stone when it's breaking. And one of the other theories in regards to the toy helicopter was that it was actually a normal helicopter shrunk down using Pym particles, and I thought that was fascinating. That was a very interesting observation because I was staring at it thinking, okay, that's got to mean something. It's the only colored item in a black and white show, and yeah, it just might happen to be, yeah, a pin particled helicopter. And we have Maria Rambeau, who was originally in Captain Marvel 2 as a young girl, and now she's a full-grown adult in um, Wonder Vision. Yes, in Wonder Vision, which is set in, the current day in a sense. I think it's in the 5 year time jump. Um, but yeah, it looks interesting. Looks great. I think going forward, this is where the sort of conspiracy theories come out with, which is the next movie that has a Scarlet Witch, and Scarlet Witch is Doctor Strange 2, called Multiverse of Madness. And in there, Scarlet Witch is a side character, a part character, but I've got a feeling, and the internet believes so as well, which is that she's going to be the main villain. That something's going to happen in this show that's going to either rupture space and time and open up the multiverse, which will allow like the whole multiverse of madness to take place. It'll tie in with the Loki show, and it will definitely tie in with the Spider-Man 3, which might have like three different Spider-Men in it. Um, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, interesting to watch, and it's a nice journey to go on. I think going for television is definitely, well, TV shows are definitely the way to explore Marvel, the Marvel Universe. And with that in mind, here's an interesting take, which is you don't need to watch anything anymore. Like, you don't need to watch any more of these MCU shows. You can sort of pick and choose what to watch now. I think the era of having to watch every single minute of every single thing is gone from the end of Endgame. I think now, if you, going forward, if you turn around and said, I'm only ever going to watch the X-Men content that the MCU produce, or only watch the Fantastic Four content MCU produce, then you'll be perfectly fine and you won't feel out of place at any moment in time. Because I think that they're smart enough now to give you whatever information you need when you need it. So yeah. Um, and okay, so going back to WandaVision, they're doing some interesting stuff, some very fun stuff. I wonder if the movie's gonna actually go down the route of House of M style, where basically Scarlet Witch goes a bit nuts and she creates um, a fantasy world where everyone's dreams basically come true. And it's a situation where like Spider-Man is now a celebrity and Carol Danvers is officially like Captain Marvel. And this is where, in the comics, she sort of decided to sober up and take on that persona. Um, but yeah, the other thing is in that comic, there's something quite interesting, which is that in House of M is basically House of Magneto. For those of you who don't know, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are the descendants, the children of Magneto, as well as Polaris, and I'm sure there are other characters as well. So those guys are all family, like blood relatives. And in House of M, basically, Wanda it basically turns around and has a mutant hierarchy. Basically, mutants rise to the top, and as a result, Magneto is number one, and humankind are, in a sense, in a tricky situation. And there's essentially a sort of a how can I say it, a gladiator style tournament going around, where it just happens to be that Tony Stark, Iron Man, is one of the fighters in the tournament, and he uses technology and stuff to fight. It's interesting. It's one to check out if you're interested more in that. The other thing I would say is WandaVision looks interesting. It looks great. I'm interested in seeing how it develops. And the point I was going to make is children. Is I would not be surprised if Wanda has kids in this show, two twins, one called Speed and the other one called Wiccan, which are her comic accurate children that she does have with Vision. Um, and I don't know how that's going to work. Basically, Vision's a robot, but stranger things have happened. Um, and with that in mind, I've got a feeling that we're going to get Quicksilver back in the show. Whether it's going to be the one from the MCU or the one from Fox is yet to be discovered. I've got a feeling it's going to be the one from Fox, simply because everyone unanimously loved that version of Quicksilver. I like the MCU one. I think everyone just prefers the Fox one, and I think we're going to get that one, and that's going to open up the multiverse a bit more. And overall, my theory for the show is, for one reason or another, um, Scarlet Witch has gone to this, small town to meet this person that can say that, oh, I will be able to help you with with your vision problem, and essentially, yeah, um, she's gonna go into this town, and something's gonna play afoot, and it's gonna result in her taking mind controlling the whole town into believing that they're in a oldie style sitcom. Um, I wonder. I wonder what's going to happen next, basically. But whoever enters that town, or whoever tries to break in, or whoever's trying to wake Wanda up, is basically gets spun around and turned into a part of the people in the small town. But we have another episode on Friday, so I am looking forward to it. Also, the other point I want to make is I know that they're currently about 30-ish minutes each. I have a feeling that as we progress through the show, they're going to turn into 1 hour long episodes. Um, and I would prefer that. I'd prefer a deep dive. I know that with Mandalorian, they did about hour episodes. Sometimes they gypped us with like 40-minute episode, and I was like, I want my money back. But it is what it is. Moving on. Actually, before we do that, I want to mention one thing. There is a X-Men TV show called The Gifted, which I know, again, most of the people watching this have never seen, but season two of The Gifted is very good. Essentially, it takes place in the somewhat takes place in the Fox universe, where the X-Men have there's some mutant battle that took place, and as a result, the X-Men were being hunted, so they've gone underground, and as a result, the X-Men have sort of deputized a handful of mutants to make their own underground version of the X Men, and parallel to that, the Brotherhood have sort of connected with a few other rogue mutants and made their own version of the Brotherhood. Um, and essentially, what you have is these ragtag group of mutants that are, hiding in sewers and in the underground, versus a well-funded establishment of mutants, and them trying to sort of um, claim power over these two young mutants, two teenagers who just happen to be very very powerful mutants. And it's interesting. It's a good show. I think season two I enjoyed thoroughly. I think season two has probably some of my favorite X Men content ever. And I think some of the roster is the children of Emma Frost. They're triplets, and they have similar psychic abilities. And then it's also got like Warpath before he's Warpath when he's Brave Star, and it's got Blink as well, and it's got Polaris, Magneto's daughter, and it's got the other guy. I can't remember his name, but he's got the shiny lighty hands. Um, but yeah, it looks good. It looks great. I would definitely check it out. It ends on an excellent cliffhanger, and I wish it got more budget to carry on because it's a very good quality show. Um, so yeah, I think that's. I'm probably going to talk more about Marvel and stuff later on anyway, but for now, that's the end of that section. And as I have like between sections, I'm going to mention this, which is if you're watching on IGTV right now, you need to switch over to the YouTube and watch the YouTube version where I've got like a nice backdrop and a screen behind me. And there's actually something on the green screen itself. So yeah, but if you're just finding IGTV, that's good with me. Next up, we're gonna go number one. We're gonna go black and white because I don't want a copyright strike. Is we're gonna talk about Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 8. So, with this in mind, I'm gonna take it all the way back to the beginning. So what we have here is Resident Evil 8. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be new, like what Resident Evil 4 did for the whole franchise, which some people say was the death of Resident Evil overall. But it's interesting. It's good. It looks like a creepy game. It looks like a scary game. It looks like something that's going to be challenging and a bit action packed, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Um, and I think in the game you have vampires, you have werewolves, as well as you're probably going to get a section which has zombies as well. Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna hit play on this trailer, and then once the trailer's over, I'm gonna talk about a certain character that's driving the internet crazy right now. So looks good, looks great. Please don't copyright strike me. This is a showcase video. This was released a couple of days ago. Definitely do check it out on the Resident Evil channel or whatever where you can YouTube it. Basically, it's available probably everywhere. Um, but what I'm gonna say is there is a certain character, a certain lady. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Is she gonna come up? There she is. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can switch to the color screen. Please, please, YouTube, don't give me a content strike. Um, so for those of you who know Resident Evil, and those of you who don't, I'm gonna explain it for you guys. There is a bioweapon, a sort of a Resident Evil is basically a zombie game, and you're in a mansion or a police station or in a city where there's zombies that have overrun it, and eventually you're gonna come up against a giant monster of a weapon called a bioweapon called like a T101 103 um, or a nemesis type. Google it, or maybe I'll do a video on it. Who knows? There are plenty of better videos than mine out there anyway. But okay, circling back. In Resident Evil 2, there is a bioweapon called Mr. X who will chase you around the police station, and they'll hear your footsteps, and the only room you can go in that you're safe in is a save room. Other than that, it will follow you throughout the whole police station, the whole map, and it's an unstoppable killing machine. You can stun it, and it will go down for like 30 seconds or a minute for you to scramble. But other than that, it's going to be a bullet sponge, and it's going to terrorize you throughout the game. It's going to cause problems, complications, and basically the screenshot of this character here has come up, and people are like going nuts over it, and I can see exactly why, because they realize that this vampire lady isn't just a normal vampire lady. She's giant, she's huge. She's got to be at least 7 or 8 foot tall, just like the bioweapon, which is Mr. X. And as a result, people are referring to her as Mrs. X, um, or Madam X, more accurately. And I'm all for it. This woman looks not just intimidating and scaring, but very, very, very alluring. Um, so yeah, I am very, very interested in seeing what this character can do, and basically she's gonna kick your butt all over that village, that Resident Evil village, that big castle. She's gonna send a creepy vampire babes after you, and yeah, it looks good. It looks great, um, and yeah, so that's basically Resident Evil 8 done with. I'm excited to see when it comes out. And next up, I'll the order of this is incorrect, but I'm going to do this order instead, which is um, there is a Resident Evil announcement on its way in regards to that showcase where they're going to show some Resident Evil stuff, and they're also going to show some other Resident Evil stuff. It's 25th anniversary Resident Evil, so what they have is potentially is they might talk about the new Resident Evil remake that they're making, which might be Resident Evil 4. But before I get to that, what they might do is they might do a re-release or a remaster of the Resident Evil games. Now, it's sort of a triple pack. Whether it's the remake trilogy, which is essentially what I have on screen, or it's the original trilogy from the PlayStation, but with upscaled graphics, um, that might be interesting. That might be very, very interesting because I know that there's a hardcore audience out there that's scratching and looking around for that original trilogy of Resident Evil, and they can't find it from legal sources, unless they couldn't go and find like um, if they can, these guys are running around the bargain basements in video game stores and paying over the odds for a PS1 game, or looking around their basement for their PS1 and or PS2, and the Resident Evil 2 CD, even GameCube. But from my perspective, from my sort of my guesstimate is that they're either going to release a triple pack of the original games from the PlayStation, like they did for the GameCube, or they're gonna remake and redistribute. Well, sorry, they're gonna redistribute the three remake games as a sort of a pack, and I would be very interested in that because I've not really experienced the first Resident Evil properly. I played it on the original PlayStation a bit here and there, but I never like sat down and completed it because it's just hard, I think, and that's fine. Some people like to play games, video games, because of the challenge. Other people like to play video games for the story. I am very much a story type of person, and that's why I like Resident Evil 2 so much. Um, so yeah, so now the next point that I was going to make, and the point I was going to, which was that Capcom are probably planning a new Resident Evil remake. Um, the natural order of things would be to remake Code Veronica, which is the sort of the next step in the game, where you follow Claire Redfield as she meets up with her brother Chris, and they come across Wesker and Alfred and Alexa and all that other stuff. Um, that's the next logical step, and the prison and the Rockford Island, they'll all look great. Sorry, I didn't mention Steven, but he's a bit of a creep, so. Um, so they're gonna mention it'll be a great game to play, but some people are saying that the insiders are saying that, oh no, actually they're remaking Resident Evil 4, which does not need a remake in a sense. All it really needs is an update to the textures, and there's already a crowdsource, open source a project out there where people are doing that anyway. So I'm not sure how much they need to do that, but I will say this: ever since Resident Evil 4 was released, it's been available on every single platform possible. And maybe I should wear glasses because I'm making weird faces, but get my sunglasses out. But yeah, so I want them. On one hand, I think the next logical step for them is to make Code Veronica, and then maybe if they feel like it, move on to Resident Evil 4. But more importantly, I think they should remake this. I think they should remake Resident Evil Outbreak, and I think there's a lot of value in doing this. If I was in charge of Capcom and in charge of the Resident Evil department, I would turn around to them and say, okay, from now on, you guys are going to go and make Resident Evil Outbreak. And you're going to not just make a normal Resident Evil game, and you're not just going to, re update the graphics or make it first person like you did with Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake. What I would like them to do is make an open world Resident Evil Outbreak game. Now, first of all, the reason why I like Resident Evil Outbreak so much is number one, look at this box art. This box art gives you an entire story. I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna zoom in. What you have here is this guy whose hand is reaching out from the sewer, and he's holding a gun, and this other guy here is trying to pull him out, but the guy is not there to. The guy in the sewer has no hope whatsoever of leaving the sewer. What he's saying to him is, "You take my gun and go." And the other guy's like, "No way, bro. I'm gonna try and save you." And the other guy's, "No, save yourself." So that one box art tells an amazing story, and the game itself is quite good. What it does, and what I liked about Resident Evil Outbreak overall is it lets you play as a diverse range of characters, a nice roster of characters, and I'm going to show you these guys here. Look at that! Look at that! I feel like I'm a part of them as my icon hovers over them. As my video stream hovers over them, I feel like I'm a part of them, and this is excellent. Actually, I'm really liking this. So yeah, you get to play as any one of these characters, any three of these characters in any mission, and you get to explore certain corridors and corners of Raccoon City, and the Resident Evil lore in general, as one of these guys, and it's nice, it's good, it's great. It's like small missions, and there are multiple ways to complete each mission. And I was somewhat hoping that Resident Evil, I think it's called Resistance, the one that came with Resident Evil 3 make. That would be a continuation from it. It is and it isn't. It's more of a a hunter versus hunted type of game. I hope that they could release this in a style similar to Grand Theft Auto, open world. And with that, I'm going to take you on to Exhibit B, which is this nice, huge map where you can explore this whole city, and there's plenty of other places around here as well for them for you to go through. And just imagine that. Look, okay, your character in the game is, let's say they're all the way over here, and they've got to turn around and say, okay, well, they're getting a call on the radio to say, oh, well, I'm in, Grill 23. That's what it's called, right? Yeah, Grill 13. I'm over in Grill 13, and I'm shacked up, and I need ammo, or I need, this tool, or I need this thing from the power plant, and your character has to go around and go through there, and you can pick any of the guys from the roster to go with you, and you got to stop off and say, oh, I have a mission, this is my side quest. And you go around, you complete your B missions and your side quests while doing your overall mission, which is to turn around and say, well, we got to get the hell out of Dodge. And you can stop at the police station, and you can see, the detective, the chief of, not chief of police, the sergeant, Branner, is it? I think, get bitten at the police station. And I know that in three make they sort of rewrote it. Um, I think in Outbreak File 2, I think the episode ends with him staying behind, but you can see all the good work that these other B characters did, and I would be in favor of them adding in some of the other B characters like the chief of police and the um, Belkin and Mrs. Belkin, Mrs. Dr. Belkin, I can't remember their names, Sherry's parents. And I would love to, go around these streets and explore. And I feel that that's what they wanted for Resident Evil 3 make, which is where, you'd be exploring the city here and there. And there was some sort of a plan where you could travel from A to B as much as you liked in whatever route you wanted. But I think due to development constraints and time, I think time was a big one, that they had to just rush it and release this. And I would have preferred they spent an extra year on it, to be honest, and give us a polished game that they could turn around and collect all the awards for, because that's what they did with Resident Evil 2. But on the flip side, I think it was a different development team that worked on it. So, yeah. But to be honest, more Resident Evil is good Resident Evil. And even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. Um, but like, I want to travel to this raccoon dam, and I want to, go on a little boat in it, and it would be great to fight that giant shark that's in Resident Evil 1, I think. Maybe it's Resident Evil 2. And yeah, and especially visit the hospital. I think I think in Resident Evil the hospital was one of my favorite locations from Resident Evil Outbreak, where you had that leech guy just following you around. Um, so yeah, and the other one was in that hotel where you had the female liquor, which was like a test variation of the liquor. And here's some nice Resident Evil lore for you, for those of you who are interested, which is that in Resident Evil 2 you come across a reporter. His name skips my mind, but he's locked up in the prison because he's been doing some espionage. And apparently he was staying in the same hotel where that female liquor is. And I would like to hope that the reason why that female liquor is there is because in the eventuality that he escapes the prison, and somehow luckily he escapes Mr. X, that he would make his way back to the hotel to collect his belongings, and that's where he would come in encounter with the liquor, which is a very difficult creature to defeat. Um, so yeah, um, there's that, and these are some of the minor reasons why I'd love to have a very lore heavy Resident Evil game, especially if you turn around, you've got them wandering around in Raccoon Forest as well, and they're coming across that sort of prototype version of the chainsaw guy, the axe guy. That basically he's like some kind of doctor who sort of got infected by the T virus, and he just keeps himself in his cabin, and he goes around and cuts up people. But yeah, creepy game, scary game. Also, yes, I would love to go back to Raccoon Zoo. Um, but yeah, I hope they do Code Veronica. I hope they do a good and just. I hope they can justify the remake of Resident Evil 4. I think that would be a very big win. They know that the Resident Evil fans love Leon, but I hope that they also turn around and have do a Jill game, do a nice Jill Valentine game where she's doing the same old thing that she's doing in Resident Evil 1 and 3, or even if they turn around and I know they try to spin it in Revelations where they gave her like a Resident Evil 4 style game, but that didn't feel like Jill to me, to be honest. Revelations, I think it's Revelations, the one that were the on the boat. Um, yeah, so I hope they do a very decent, very good Resident Evil game with Jill in there. And even if they turn around and said Resident Evil 4, fine, we're gonna give Jill a B plot, and she's on the same Spanish island along with Leon and Ada. And that would be very interesting to see her go up against Krauser and to see her sneak around the big castle and go up against some of the other bosses. Um, so yeah, that might be very justifiable. Something like that. I want a nice little cut on the Resident Evil lore for them to justify remaking Resident Evil 4. Um, so yeah, that wraps things up on that one. I won't go into the Resident Evil movie that's upcoming. I think when they give a bit more news in regards to it, I'll do a video then. And it's very similar to what I like about this, which is a very diverse range of cast. Um, so yeah, I think we're on the final section of the show, which is a sort of tech section, and I'm gonna talk about Galaxy S21 series. I think we're in a very strange situation right now, and this section feels quite strange overall, but it's something that I wanted to include anyway, which is talking about tech in general. Um, I do want to make my laptop buying guide. I want to make my smartphone buying guide, but I think it's also interesting to sort of guide people on their smartphone buying journey. So Samsung have announced S21, 21 Plus, and 21 Ultra, and they're all pretty much the same phone except for a minor spec bumps in detail. And personally, I would rather just they just did the S21 and they went with like a Note 21 and be done with it at that. We didn't really need the ones in the middle, and I would rather they focus um, their September, October, August, September efforts on their Q3, Q4, or well, H2 efforts on the Fold series, because I think that's something that is definitely going to be a big revenue earner for them. But clearly they pay some people millions a year or hundreds of thousands of pounds to come up with these ideas and come up with these strategies. So what do I know? Um, so they've come up with the S21, 21 Plus, and Ultra, and they're pretty much the same phone except the screen's a bit bigger on some of them, and the weight's a bit different. Now, the only real differential parts are is that the Ultra has a few more fancier cameras, and that it's got a larger battery, and it comes in more storage variants, and I think it has more RAM as well. I think the S21 and 21 Plus are only 8 gigs of RAM, and the Ultra has some more RAM. I think it goes 12 or 16 gigs of RAM, and the Ultra is not compatible with the S Pen. And this is a question that I have, which is why on earth did they not just make S21 Note instead, or Note Ultra, and release it with this, and be able to have the little pen hole for the S Pen built into the phone instead of attaching it to a case. But logic defies me. They are cheaper. I think they are cheaper than they were last year, which is fine. Also, no charger in the box. You do get the Type C to Type C cable, which is nice. I guess USB Type C cables are cheap enough that you can swap a Type C cable with an power adapter, and it will somewhat come to the equivalent value of a Type C to Type C cable, which is still relatively new technology and harder to come by on the second-hand market or on the third-party market as an affordable option. I think there are plenty of USB Type C um, cables, USB-A to Type C, the normal Type C cable, available on the market at a cheap price for them to justify throwing this in instead of a cheap cable and a um, a power brick. But yeah, no headphones either, which is sucks. Which sucks because I don't use them, but it's nice to collect them for that odd situation or odd time when you need it. Um, do I think you should buy these phones? If you need a phone, buy it. If you don't need a phone, I'd probably give it a skip. I tend to prefer phones that come out in and around the same time that the iPhone comes out, which is like the second half of the year. Um, Basically, by then, especially with the Samsung series, that the Galaxy series is the one for everyone, and then the Note series is one for power users. And the power user one, what it tends to do is refine some of the sharp edges on the Galaxy series, on the the S series. So you'll get that. For example, on the S21 Ultra, there is a missing camera on there on the back, so you can probably expect that to be on the Note, and it'll probably come with a pen, but and it'll probably come with a bit more of a fancier camera, and that's it. But those two or three things that have been added on are probably worth the 100, 200 odd pounds extra they're going to ask for it anyway. If you don't need that stuff, then fine. I think currently smartphones are powerful enough that they do not need to be, um, 1,000, 1,500. I think you'll be perfectly fine with like a OnePlus, or even if you go for the A series in Samsung, they're just fine. Obviously, you got the money to spend, might as well spend it, go big. Um, if you were to put a gun to my head and say, "Will you buy? Should I buy a Galaxy phone or should I buy a iPhone?" I will turn around to you and say, "What phone do you have right now?" and just buy the newer version of that one. Um, if you're running in the Android ecosystem, stick with Android. If you're an Apple person, stick with Apple. At this rate, at this point in time, it's been about 10 years for this, a good 10 years for this whole smartphone war to be going on. And I think that it's a situation where if you've been an iPhone user for 6 years, you might as well stay with your iPhone, because for you to learn how to use Android, it might be frustrating. I know that there isn't that much difference, but I do get frustrated if I pick up an iPhone and I do use Android. But yeah, so there's that to compete with. If you were a novice and you've just come out of from under a rock and you need to buy a brand new phone, I would suggest to you to go and buy an iPhone instead of buying a Samsung phone. Simply because I know that you'll get more support and you'll get more accessories and everything will be just nice and it'll just work. But if you're a bit nerdy, a bit techy, yeah, fine, go for the Samsung. Um, so yeah, I wonder how long have I been going on for? How long have I been going on for? I think I started this about quarter past midnight, and yes, I think I've been going on for an hour, 54 minutes. Um, I'm gonna go on the big screen. I'm gonna go big. Okay, so in retrospect, what I will say is Godzilla vs King Kong is coming out earlier than expected. In summary, Godzilla vs King Kong is coming out earlier than expected, and it's going to be good. It's going to be great. I hope cinemas are open for us to be able to watch it. Number two is the Mortal Kombat movie. It looks good. It looks great, but also it looks schlocky, and I like schlocky. Like it looks like a B movie, and I think we're in a point in a cinema technology now where B movies are, look as good as, if not better than, big budget Hollywood movies. Um, so yeah, a big budget Hollywood movies from 10 years ago. For example, if you watch something like District 9, I know it doesn't have like a huge budget, but like the CGI on it looked good, looked great. So any B movie will be happy with that level of CGI. Um, so yeah, Mortal Kombat, it'll be good. Hopefully it's got the story. I think that's a saving grace for many B movies. I watched The Meg recently, the Jason Statham one where he takes on that giant shark. Um, yeah, that's a B movie and it's got no story and it had no heart, unfortunately. Rampage is a similar one where it's a B movie with a cheap story and no heart. Skyscraper is a good B movie. Skyscraper, I think it's on Netflix or it should be on Amazon Prime. That's a good movie with good story, but it's still a B movie. Like it's still a bit schlocky, but I'm here for it. And I'm guessing there's a handful of movies that have The Rock in them and have these big name actors in them, um, that are produced and basically funded from by China, and they all have a similar beat to them, which is where they're going to be big and bold and bright, but then also they're going to skimp on the budget at one point in time, and they'll get like a B plus script, and they'll make it into a full solid B movie, but it's definitely a B plus script. And if it did not have that fancy Chinese budget attached to it, it would have been a C-lister movie. No one has ever turned around and said, The Towering Inferno and Die Hard are a good movie. I want to rewatch them again. So yeah, there's that to deal with. So Mortal Kombat, and then we we had One Division. One Division again, something to look out for. Um, Give it a show, give it a go, give it a watch. If you don't like it, I strongly recommend you go and watch Agents of Shield, which is also on Disney Plus. I think if you just start from season one, episode one, and then just you can binge it. It's a very bingeable show for the first, let's say half of the first season. It might be a tough pill to swallow, but once you get past that point, and you'll know when that point is, it's going to explode and it's going to be crazy. And then you'll grin and bear through parts of season two, but as soon as you hit season three is excellent. Season three is what cemented that show in as my favorite show ever. And amongst that list is like Lost and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there'll probably be a few more to add on that I can't remember right now. But um, from like season three onwards, every episode is 10 out of 10 until you get to like the second half of season five and part of season seven. But I understand why they did that, which is to save budget for the very spectacular season seven. And with the final season of Agents of Shield, is they did something that One Division are doing now, which is depending on what the context of the episode is, the ident and the intro of the show changes. They did this in previous seasons as well, but with this final season, they did it the best. So yeah, and then in summing up, I'm going to bring her back on screen. This character, Mrs. X, Madam X, is going to be excellent. I'm very excited to go up against her. She looks like she's gonna like absolutely mutate into a ugly creature, and like destroy things. So yeah, um, it looks good. It looks great. I can't wait to play it when it comes out. And then finally, to sum up, I think we were talking about Resident Evil Outbreak, and yeah, I think Outbreak as a game to be remade will be very interesting and very good. And yeah, I think there you go. I've hit the 1 hour mark. So yeah, excellent, great. Yeah, so hopefully you had a fun time with this. I had a fun time. I spoke a lot. I spoke a lot for a whole hour. Um, so yeah, I want to get better at doing this, and I'll need your help to do so. And hopefully we can share in the rewards. Um, I want giveaways and sponsorships for my fans and for my community, and that's what I want to build. I want to bring you guys onto the show. You know what I mean? I think one of the biggest benefits with the lockdowns and people having to be staying at home is that they can now tune into this kind of stuff and that they can participate as well. I have interest from a good friend of mine who wants to be a part of the show, and no doubt next weekend or the weekend after he'll definitely be on, and we'll sit and we'll talk DC and Marvel, and we'll give our thought pieces and think pieces on these things. Um, so yeah, um, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys want to tune in again. I know for the people that are watching on IGTV that you're just going to see a green screen behind me, but if you tune into the YouTube variation of this version of this, you can see like fancy graphics behind me. Um, and I think if you are watching on Facebook Live, I'm going to try and um, I'm going to try and put this on Facebook Live the following day, but by streaming the actual video that I recorded for YouTube, if that makes sense. I hope I can actually get that done. Um, but yeah, cool. I have literally 24 seconds remaining on IGTV, so thank you and goodbye. And share with your friends, I guess. Stay tuned. And in regards to my YouTube people, I will hopefully see you next week at a reasonable hour. And hopefully maybe wear sunglasses so you don't see me making weird faces.